Actually quite a curious coincidence that the ratio between the speed of breakbeat and drum and bass is the same as the ratio between 33 1/3 and 45 on your record player. So if you take a 45 drum and bass track and play it at 33, then it is breakbeat. It's exactly the same, and vice versa. So you can actually use that in mixing. It's quite an interesting effect. So yeah, listen for that same broken beat, the same delayed third beat, now with the high energy up-tempo drum and bass. Yeah, so it's beautiful. They're all beautiful. I like all of these different styles. So, but I am trying to make a case here somehow that there's a reason why, for me, drum and bass sits above all the rest. And it's partly based on stuff I've already talked about. First of all, broken beats are just something special. They really give character to dance music. I see it as being a little bit like this, the jazz concept of dissonance and resolution, where you'll play kind of a discord and it sounds jarring, but then it's resolved as you come back into key. And this is kind of the rhythmic equivalent, right? That everyone's expecting that beat and it doesn't come. And for a moment, the whole dance floor just hangs in the air. Everything's kind of in stasis and then boom, it's back on the rhythm. So I love broken beats. Also then when you combine that with the very high tempo, very energetic, I mean I'm a dance music DJ, so it's all about getting a jumping dance floor. And so drum and bass really has that. But it's more than that, because drum and bass is incredibly diverse, and much more so, I will assert. I'm happy for anyone to contradict me if they want to, but much more so than any other dance music style. I think that's a justified claim. And so I wanted to explore some of the differences here. And I'm going to do this, going back to the early days to begin with. And that makes sense because the early kind of proto drum and bass, which we call jungle, it is in many ways the most diverse. This was when dance music producers were experimenting with what could be achieved. It's electronic, it doesn't depend on the skill of your drummer. In fact, it can go beyond anything that any human drummer could do, right? You can have as many beats in there as you like. And so I want to play a few examples. So that's Funkeler by DJSS, classic track. And then In Between the Lines by DJSS and Ronnie Size, another example. This is all stuff from the early 90s, actually before I was a DJ. So I managed to collect quite a bit, but it was all secondhand or the occasional re-release. It can be quite chaotic at times, right? It's just experimenting, trying out different things, and some of them really went wild. And then later, as I started getting into it, they were becoming a bit more refined, but still kind of a little bit chaotic. So just more beats than you expect from any normal music, and something far beyond anything you would get in trance and techno and house, things like that. So the third one is is entitled Mash Up You Know by Aladdin. Yeah. So just 3 examples. So there are loads that you could pick from. And I would say these days people are starting to experiment. Obviously we've got much better technology for making it now, but this was the early days and people were just trying stuff out. Through the 90s, everything continued to evolve. I started collecting, I got turntables first time in 97, so kind of and I got into drum and bass probably 95. And in the late 90s, things had changed a bit, it evolved. It was less chaotic. there was a style that was influenced by many different producers. There are a lot of people who are into it. But I would say at that point, late 90s, it was most influenced by the Bristol sound, the V recordings and full cycle labels. It was DJ Crust, Ronnie Size, DJ Dye, DJ Suv, and they created what became known as the stepper style, which was more of a two-step beat. And so give an example of that. So it's less chaotic, more kind of pounding bass in it. So this one's a classic Warhead by DJ Crust. So rhythmically, still interesting, nice. It's got some things going on. It's not just, you know, four to the floor, and it's still got that classic broken beat in there, but less chaotic. But it wasn't always as simple as this. So they were still playing around with things, using the opportunities in electronic production. And sometimes it was really very sophisticated. So a less well-known track, but one of my favorites from that era, this is Guess, also by DJ Crust, as it happens. That's the longest sample in the set. I had to play the whole thing. Isn't it a special rhythm? It just makes me think of like skimming stones on a lake, right? Where it's skipping across the water, barely touching the surface, kind of effortless. There's really, this is what I'm saying, of the dance music style, there's nothing comes close to that in terms of diversity of rhythms, at least in dance music, of course. There's many other forms of music where they've done all sorts of interesting things. And I've only got you now as far as 1998. So I did, in preparing for this, I spent a while chatting with a couple of friends of mine. We have a WhatsApp group between three of us, friend in London, friend in the Netherlands, where I used to live. And we ended up coming up with lists of different styles of drum and bass that I'd want to play, but I knew I wasn't going to have time to go through all of that. And maybe I'd try and make the case, if people were into it enough, maybe I'd do a second talk or something. But I'm going to leave it there in 1998, because I want to go now back to the beginning and talk a bit about the history and where this all came from, how this all happened. And maybe later on, if people want to ask about it, and we can talk about some of the other styles, and maybe I can put something together to do something different. So where did all this come from? It's not just talking about drum and bass now, we're talking about electronic dance music. And it's an evolution of culture and technology. So all new music is evolution of culture. That's, music is part of culture. But for electronic music, it depended on technology. And the two key technological enablers were samplers and synthesizers. So I'm going to talk mostly about samplers, because that's really where the early rhythms came from. Synthesizer, where you're making a sound from scratch electronically. And of course, that's something we can do in a very sophisticated way now. But at the beginning, the sounds were very bleepy, and which is classic, like acid house based on the Roland 303 sound. They managed to do a lot of interesting things with it. But the early rhythms were not synthesized, they were based on sampling. So the concept was you record real drum sounds from real drums, and then you use your sampler to layer different beats from your recordings, and you can put as many in your layering as you want, right? So you can have really complicated or sophisticated rhythms that come out of that. The problem with this is, although there's many recordings that include drums, on the whole, they also include vocals or other instruments. It's a whole polyphony layered already. So it's very difficult to pick out an individual drum sound. It ends up just becoming a big mess. So what you really needed was a drum solo. fortunately, back in the 60s and 70s, it had actually become quite a big thing, particularly in soul music, recorded by bands in the US, that they would have drum solos. And this actually goes back to the beginning of clubbing as we would now recognize it. In African American soul clubs, particularly in the Northeast United States, they had this concept of a club where people went dancing with a dance floor that wasn't like ballroom dancing or, couples dancing, just a bunch of people